verses 25 through 31. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church, for we are members of his body. Therefore, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So now Paul does. He turns to the husband. All right? And again, we're going to take it verse by verse. Verse 25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. This says that husbands are to love their wives as Christ loved the church, and just as wives are to submit because of their relationship with Jesus, so husbands are to love because of their relationship with Jesus. Okay? This doesn't say, love your wife if she's easy to love. Okay? No, husbands are commanded here to continually love their wives no matter what. No matter what. Now, how would you describe or explain Christ's love for the church? Well, in verse 26, it says this. So he gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word. Christ gave himself up in his death, burial, and resurrection. And this verse says the purpose in that. It was to make the church holy and clean. And the way it is written, it means these things have already occurred. All right? This isn't a verse about spiritual growth. This is a verse about salvation. We are holy and clean. It's not that we have to become that. That's not what this verse is about. There are other verses that are, but this isn't what that verse is about. This verse says that we are holy and clean, and we are holy and clean by the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. He says, applied to us through the washing with water, probably a reference to baptism, and the word. Okay, verse 27. And he does this to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. So Christ gave himself up in his death, burial, and resurrection so that he could himself, the word means exhibit or present or display the church as being glorious, as being gorgeous, as being splendid, and without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. I do not think this is talking about the end times. I don't think this is describing the church of the future. I think Paul is saying that this is what the church is and looks like right now in the eyes of God and in the eyes of Jesus Christ, because of Christ. And Jesus is proud of the church that we have been made holy and blameless. So think of Vanna White. Okay? What is Vanna White's job? Right? Yeah, that's her job. And that's what this verse is describing. Jesus says, look at my church. Look at my church. This is the bride making a grand entrance. This is Jesus having the church walk the red carpet so everybody can notice how splendid and beautiful she is. Okay, so he died, he sacrificed himself to make the church holy and blameless, and now he says, look at her. This is her. This is my bride. Verse 28. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. So just as Jesus sacrificed himself in order to provide for the greatest needs of the church, so husbands ought to love their wives so much that they provide for the wife's greatest needs. So let me ask you this. How do you know that you love your body? Okay, we make sure to do things because we love our bodies, right? This isn't talking about admiring your body or looking at yourself in the mirror or taking selfies. Okay? This is talking about providing for your own needs. So, what are you willing to do in order to be able to eat? Work primarily, right? Yeah. I mean, I shared, and I think it was a Sunday evening message a while back. I remember when I went to the North American Christian Convention as a kid, walking down the street with a buddy and looking down an alley and seeing this guy digging through the trash behind a restaurant and finding maybe half a hamburger that somebody had thrown out. And that's what he ate. Well, what was he willing to do in order to be able to nourish himself? There you go, dig through the trash, eat somebody else's leftover discarded hamburger. What are you willing to do for clothing or transportation? What are you willing to do in order to make sure that your home is air conditioned and heated? Right? Anybody's electric bill gone up recently? Okay. So did any of us call bars and say, tear out the air conditioning unit, I don't need it? Anybody say that? None of us did, I bet, right? We like our comfort. We like our comfort. The point is that if we love ourselves so much that we make sure we have what we need and much of what we want, that's how husbands should love their wives. That's how husbands should love their wives. Verse 31. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So Paul goes back to Genesis here in the establishment of the marriage relationship. And he quotes it here to underscore the priority of the marriage to the man. It says that he breaks from his father and mother, and his priority is now the wife. And the two become one flesh. If you love your own body, that now means loving your wife. So, nobody has to answer this out loud, okay? All right. Because it could get you in trouble. But wives, wouldn't it be easier to submit to a husband who loved you the way Christ loved the church and sacrificed for her needs and welfare? And husbands, wouldn't it be easier to sacrificially love a wife who respected, trusted, and submitted to you? Of course it would. Of course it would. And that's the way God designed it. The more the husband loves his wife, the more she respects and submits. And the more she respects and submits, the more he loves her. And it just keeps growing